Welcome into another edition of The Session with Londa and David. My name's David Austin, and sitting across from me, as she does each and every week, my beautiful blushing bride, Londa Joanne Sherwood Austin.
It is me.
I got to tell you, this animal print thing you're wearing, I don't know if it's reptilian.
I don't know.
If it's like some kind of large cat. I don't know what's happening, but I like it, and it's very suggestive.
It's not at all suggestive.
It's very modest, but it's so cute, and it's kind of a jumper, right? It's like a little short set thing.
Little jumper.
I love it. I love the jumper. The Session with Londa and David is a business program with a lot of chemistry. And we're not going to talk about science today, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, The Session with Londa and David is brought to you each and every week by Sherwood Austin Solutions. With over 40 years of combined sales success, Sherwood Austin Solutions can help diagnose and prescribe solutions for any problems in your business. A lot of business consultants only focus on the bottom line, profitability. That's it. Not everybody takes a holistic approach to solving business problems, whether it's HR issues, whether it's payroll issues, whether it's accounting issues.
Systems,
Sherwood
mindset.
Austin Solutions can help diagnose and prescribe the right solution for your business. Whether you have a restaurant or a bar, you run sales teams, or you're just a salesperson looking to up your goals, Sherwood Austin Solutions can help. Call Londa today at 509-491-2663. The number again, 509-491-2663 for Sherwood Austin Solutions. It's a great time to be in business. Why not be in business with us?
On that note, in last week's podcast, we shared that we have 2 openings. We now only have 1.
That's great.
Yeah.
So there you go. The podcast works.
Well, so if you want to get in, shoot me a text.
And you can text 509-491-2663.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the podcast in general. We are up this year for a Signal Award, which is excellence in podcasting.
Okay.
I've joked all along that no one listens to podcasts, and no one does. We only have like now we have 5,000 listeners, 5,000 unique listeners to the podcast, and I'm excited about that.
For you, that's small because you're used to, regular old radio.
Well, when you're on an over-the-air radio station, or terrestrial radio, as it's commonly known in the industry, if you sneeze, 10,000 people hear you.
Right.
And that's on a cruddy little signal coming out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah. 5,000 watt AM from Bunkie, Louisiana, 5,000 people could hear you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's a different medium. But, for me, the podcast has just been really fun.
And I'm excited to see what happens. They're in the judging phase right now of the Signal Awards, and we're in the business category.
Okay.
So I can't wait to see what happens. And as Apple told us, we were one of the top 150 business podcasts in the world in our first month of doing the podcast. Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. And there's nowhere to go but up from here. Okay.
I love that.
We often start with what's going on in national news headlines that impact your business. One of the biggies is we've now had, it's confirmed, 2 quarters in a row of shrinkage in our GDP. So we've gone backwards 2 quarters in a row. And just to put that into perspective, that's half a year of business shrinkage.
Right.
No one's saying it like that, by the way, and I don't understand that. You know what I mean?
Well, everybody's got their angle, right?
Right.
The federal government has their angle. The traditional news media has their angle.
Right.
And we have our angle.
Well, I can tell you this. Historically, 2 quarters in a row of shrinkage in the GDP
signals
a recession. The federal government is saying because unemployment is so low, we're not in a recession. Historically, unemployment is super low going into a recession. It kind of bottoms out and then boom, recession, and then unemployment goes up.
Right.
And it was really interesting last week.
because companies start letting people go.
Sure.
Yeah. To cut corners.
It was interesting to see last week both Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed, and Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, were talking about the workforce is very tight and it needs some natural loosening.
Yeah, that was the verbiage, and I thought,
people are getting laid off. Is what that means.
That's an interesting spin. Those are interesting words to be using.
And they're not willing to say that we're in a recession. Now, there is a group of people, economists, that study the economy that are the only ones who can say for sure whether this is a historical recession. I would be shocked if they don't. And I heard another guy talking about, and this is just somebody that is an economist in the state of Louisiana, talking about when he was going to Nicholls State University, his professor told him that if you're barely getting by and you're barely paying your bills, then you're in a recession. And if you lose your job and you can't pay your bills, then you're in a depression.
Right.
And I think that's very interesting with the two top financial people in the nation signaling layoffs are coming.
Right.
And saying it in a way that was so glib, nobody caught that layoffs are coming.
And I'd be interested to hear what's happening in your area where you live, because in South Louisiana, where we are most of the time, man, there's plenty of work.
Right.
There's tons of work. There's
tons of
job fairs all
available.
the time. There's help wanted ads and posters, signs in the windows. And there's a ton of work here.
And there's a ton of work in the Pacific Northwest. Our kids keep getting promotions. There are jobs available. So I'm
curious.
In the markets where we spend most of our time professionally, the economies are great and unemployment is low. And layoffs don't seem likely. So the thing to remember about a recession is it's usually not great for Wall Street, but it only matters what happens on Main Street, whether or not you can pay your bills.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. And again, just a plug for my TikTok, Londa Sherwood Austin, because I share a lot of really simple, practical money-saving tips over there.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You do a good job with that.
Thank
and
you.
I don't know how you put the text in and all the whirly gigs and the swirling graphics. I find it very interesting. I can edit and present a news package for television, but I have no idea how to work a TikTok.
I don't really know either. I just I'm learning. But if you want just some straight talk,
Right.
then that's where you will find it. Because let me tell you what I'm not doing over there. I'm not massaging the words to make them sound nice.
That's exactly
I'm saying
right.
things like, if you're still throwing food out of your refrigerator before you go grocery shopping, you're doing it wrong.
Right. That's exactly right.
You're not hurting financially if you're doing that. Because when you're hurting financially, you eat everything in your fridge before it goes bad.
It's funny that you talk about that. And on a bigger scale, I was watching one of the national news shows last Friday, and I think it was the Today Show. And right after a segment about inflation being higher than it's ever been, they did a segment about camping.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the most ridiculous dichotomy I'd ever seen.
Right.
One is inflation's the tax everybody pays. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Because things are up over 20% in certain areas. Food's up 40%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
9.1% overall, I think, is what they're saying. But we've got money to blow on new tents and sleeping bags, everybody. Let's go camping.
Yeah, I think they were trying to say it's an inexpensive vacation, but that's, listen, if you love nature, you love sleeping outside, then yes, that's a vacation. But if you don't, then it's just a whole lot of work somewhere where you don't have the conveniences of home.
I don't know if you've priced camping gear in the last 10 years.
Yes, I
It's
have.
crazy expensive and was before any of this inflation talk started happening.
Yeah.
Tents are expensive. Sleeping bags are expensive. They were not proposing that you go out and get a cowboy bedroll and lay out under the stars.
Right.
They were talking about buying nice big cool tents.
Yeah.
And outdoor air conditioning systems that you can bring into your tent. Stuff that's not cheap.
And it's not practical. And that, that's the disconnect of the national news.
Right.
That's why my TikTok's great, because
Yeah.
and people might look at my life and think, oh, you don't know how to save money. You don't have to save money. Well, one, it's just innate in who I am.
Sure.
And so I do. But, my whole history, raising 7 kids, having a household of 9 people on a cop's salary was, tight. So I learned it in the fire, if you will.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Now, the Fed last week raised the Fed fund rate another 3/4.
And what does that mean for us?
The short-term borrowing of money by businesses and banks just got more expensive by 3/4 of a point.
Okay.
So what that does when they raise the Fed fund rate is it makes it more expensive to do business. So prices go up. Now you're saying, well, that's counterintuitive to fighting inflation. And I agree. But in the short term, what they're doing is scaring off buyers from going and buying things that they would normally be buying right now, which is why raising the Fed fund rate often leads to a recession because people are scared to go buy and they're hoarding their money. Well, it's very interesting that the news media has taken a different tact this month than they did last month. Last month, when the Fed raised the Fed fund rate 3/4 of a point, the media went crazy talking about how much more expensive it was going to be to buy a house. And they talked the same about the rising housing costs in rentals and purchases and rising interest rates, alluding to the fact that the Fed raised home interest rates. And what they did was they raised short-term lending rates. HELOCs, which are home equity lines of credit, are impacted by that.
Right.
But mortgage-backed securities, which is the trading of these bundles of mortgages, you remember hearing about this in 2007, 2008 during the crash?
Yeah, for sure.
That is what moves interest rates on a day-to-day basis, the sales of these mortgage-backed securities, right? The reason interest rates have gone up so quickly since the Fed started raising their Fed fund rate is because at the same time, they decided to sell off the mortgage-backed securities that they'd had to clear the debts that they have, right? Well, doing both at the same time accelerates losses. And that's why interest rates went up, because the biggest buyer of mortgage-backed securities, the federal government, is no longer buying them. And not only buying them, they're flooding the market with them.
Right.
So that's why yields went down and rates went up so quickly. The good news is mortgage-backed securities and stocks, for that matter, hate inflation.
Right.
So a strong Fed stance on inflation motivates both the stock market and the mortgage-backed securities market. And that's why when they raised the Fed fund rate last week, we saw a banner day on the stock market and a 54 basis point improvement in the bond market. So interest rates dropped by about 1/4%, I would say.
There you go.
Which is awesome.
There you go.
So no one now is reporting that it's more expensive to buy a house this time.
Right.
And I wonder if it's to change the dialogue and the conversation around inflation.
Well,
because if you've got an administration saying, well, it's not as bad as you think, and the price of gas went down by over $1 and everything, we don't then want to hear about other things that are more expensive.
Well, it's the oldest trick in the book when it comes to marketing and sales. It's if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation.
Correct.
So, that's kind of where it is. I wanted to touch on a couple of interesting statistics, the AT&T thing and the Walmart thing.
Oh, yes.
So let's share those.
Corporate earnings came out last week. AT&T announced that 41% of their subscribers were delinquent. The day that was made available, their stock dropped 15%.
It's shocking to me.
Well,
41% is a lot.
Well, yeah. And, when you look back at the market crash of 2007 and 2008, the Federal Trade Commission changed their rules on how you report delinquencies. And if you were a publicly traded company and it was more than 90 days past due, you had to write down that debt for your shareholders. Gone. Uncollectible. 90 days.
Oof.
So that was a major contributor to the mortgage meltdown, because I've seen mortgage deals where they get behind 3 months, a ton over my career.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's pretty common. Well, that radically changed banking. That's why banks were closing, because now we're publicly traded and now we're more loss than gain,
right,
because of a rules change, not because of a real change.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
The owner of, I don't remember which bank it was. I had 2 loans in process with them at the time, and I think they were based in California.
And when was this?
2007.
Okay.
Or 2008. And Interfirst Bank, maybe Interfirst Bank. The CEO,
but maybe not, because we don't want to be sued.
Right. The CEO of this bank, which may have been Interfirst or not, I'm not sure, went to bed a billionaire and woke up negative $11 billion the next day.
Oh.
And it's because of this rules change, and you know,
boy,
people were more than 90 days delinquent. So all of his warehouse lines called his loans due that morning. So he was his personal holdings were in the billions, and then he was negative billions when he woke up the next day. So these are real concerns.
And this is one reason why I say diversify your income too.
Well, and that's great. Versus if you're starting a new role, go in all in so you can be successful. Once you get that thing humming, then you can take on other.
Diversify immediately.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
Yep. And the Walmart thing.
Oh, Walmart announced during their reporting last week that they are having trouble selling durable goods. And durable goods are like jeans and shoes and blouses, things people wear. They reported that groceries are still selling at their normal rate, and that some people are buying non-name brand products, but they have deeply discounted durable goods because people just have no discretionary funds.
So I mean, I feel like, you know, as a mom, this or a, you know, parent, guardian, whatever, that's great news for back to school.
Well, and it is back to school season, so they can't sell durable goods during the time that they sell the most durable goods.
Which, speaking of the greatest marketing scam ever, back to school.
Right.
Listen, if your kids did not need new clothes in the last 10 weeks,
they don't need new clothes now.
They don't need them now.
That's exactly right.
They don't need them now. It's just this, you know, marketing of, oh, it's back to school, and so we have to have all new clothes, and we have to. Now, it's not like, I mean, when I was a kid, that was the time of year I got my one new pair of shoes.
Right. Is that when the Sears catalog came to the holler? And you walk down to the general store with your holy shoes with newspaper stuffed in the bottom of them, singing about being a coal miner's daughter. The Sears catalog.
I mean, you joke about it, but
is that really what it was like for you?
It wasn't quite that, but you know, my parents and they just weren't good with money.
Okay.
And, you know, had a lot of debt, a lot of debt, and a lot of credit card debt, a lot of consumer debt, right? The cars, they always had toys.
Like snowmobiles and boats.
And travel trailer, RVs and things like that.
Sure.
And, but, you know, I got 2 pair of shoes a year.
Right.
And so, you know,
is that why you have a thing for shoes? Oh my God, it is.
Maybe.
I look in your closet, and I got to tell you, the shoe display is unbelievable in the top of your closet.
It's
the way
much
shoes
smaller
go all
than
the way.
it used to be.
It looks like some kind of filthy foot fetish museum. It does.
Oh my gosh.
They're all high heels.
That's just because on the top shelf, that's where the heels are kept.
Yeah, so they're super high because they're high heels on a high shelf. It's an interesting thing, and your love for shoes, let me tell you, if you have not ever gone shoe shopping with Londa Sherwood Austin, you have missed out on a lot of fun. She will find every clearance section in any store that sells women's shoes and go through each and every pair, whether she likes them or not. And I don't know what you're looking for when you're doing that.
No. I have okay, so part of what I do is I always know. Okay, I actually keep a note in my phone of my wardrobe gaps.
Okay. That is unusual.
So it's from when I did wardrobing for a living.
I got you.
I learned some systems for that, right? And there's some basic things I always know I want in my wardrobe. And when I've gotten rid of a lot of shoes in the last year.
Yes.
And because they wear out. I'm really hard on shoes. So I always say my balls start screaming.
Right. The balls of your feet.
Yeah. Because I have some nerve damage and whatever.
When you wear heels that high, of course you have nerve damage on the balls of your feet.
Yeah. Well, I worked at Nordstrom in, the late 80s, early 90s, where we wore stilettos on those concrete floors. So it stands to reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I know what I'm looking for when I go in. And I only shop clearance.
Right.
And I don't know what. It's because I'm innately really fiscally conservative.
And if you look at you when you go out in public, I often hear from people that hadn't met my new wife, Londa, and it's been almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in a few weeks. Anyway, can you believe that, by the way? Anyway, people say to me, oh my God, she's so striking. She dresses like a French model. I hear that
Nobody
all
says
the time.
that.
Yes, they do.
That's your term. Nobody says that.
Ask Jimmy Higgs. People say that about you, anyway. And it's because you're striking. And to find out that you're only buying things in the clearance, that's pretty cool.
Well, I'll shock you.
I know it to be true because I've seen you do it.
I'll shock you a little further
Okay.
that a lot of my clothing is thrifted. Because I love to thrift.
And you have a weird system about go to thrift stores in the fancy parts of town.
I do. Anybody who thrifts knows that's what you do.
Well, I don't know anything about thrifting. And I have...
You find the nicest part of town and you go to those thrift stores because that's where the people who live there take it to the closest thrift store.
And see, to me, thrifting is like dating over 40. You're trying to find the least damaged thing that smells the best. That's what thrifting is to me.
Yes, and you did. So you're welcome.
Well, we didn't date. No, I'm talking about thrifting.
Yeah.
To me, it seems kind of weird. I get a little bit of a snakes feeling like I get whenever I go to Burlington Coat Factory.
Well, that's good. Stay out of my store.
Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the agoraphobia really pops off when I'm in a place like that. And I feel that way whenever I'm at a thrift store. I do. Unless I'm going in there with you for you to do your thing.
Right.
Now, all our kids love to thrift shop because you raised them.
Right.
So they all love it.
Right.
And I really did get a really nice gift from David Michael the last time we went thrifting with him in Florida.
Yeah.
He bought me a New Orleans Saints shirt with long sleeves.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, oh, I can never wear that. But you washed it and sanitized it, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm just, why not? Why not? I've got some really high-end, high-quality items that I paid pennies on the dollar for.
Right.
And I love that. Now, I'll also, I have a pair of Tamara Mellon shoes that I paid $500 for. So I will do both, but I just, that was a big splurge and I don't do that very often. Okay. All right. That's fine. That was my gift to me.
You're allowed to buy things that you want. You're also allowed to buy things that you need.
I also love the thrill of the hunt.
Yes.
Like finding a diamond in the rough, is, and I'm always, and I have certain things. I don't buy shoes at thrift stores, but I'll buy the hell out of jeans.
Right.
My philosophy is you can never have enough jeans.
It's interesting that you love thrifting, but you usually don't buy thrifted shoes.
No. Mm-mm.
And I wonder why that is.
Because they're already broken down, typically.
And because you're hard on the balls of the foot.
Now, if I found, like, there's a place in Lafayette that is an upscale resale shop. Mm-hmm. And they've got some seriously upscale shoes.
Is it the Clothes Mentor?
No, it's called the Clothing Loft.
Okay. In downtown?
Yeah.
Okay, cute little store.
No, I don't think it's downtown.
No?
I don't know.
What's the one downtown? The cute little store across and down from our office in downtown Lafayette.
I do not remember.
We went right by it Friday.
That is a cool little thrift store.
It's a vintage kind of.
It's a vintage thrift store, and each rack in the store is a different vendor, and that's really cool too. No, the one I'm talking about is very upscale, like high end. Like the family that owns and runs it, they go and source high end items for the store.
Is this the store on Arnold Boulevard in Lafayette where the ladies were speaking maybe Arabic to each other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a really nice store.
Yeah.
And those ladies were super nice. You and I got to break the ice with them after we were in the store for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Before that, it seemed very chilly. But
yeah.
I think it's because they were speaking a different language, and so they were.
Which doesn't bother me, but they were just very inside.
Yeah, very inside of where they were.
Themselves, yeah.
But once I was able to get one of them laughing, then they really warmed up. Very nice people.
Yeah.
But I can see why someone would think they're a little chilly upon entrance of the store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been on kind of a no spending moratorium, so
which is good because we're in a growth mode. And if you're in a growth mode, trends do not affect you. And here's what I mean.
Tell me more about that.
We're in a growth mode. I newly opened an Envoy Mortgage satellite branch in Lafayette, Louisiana. It's a satellite of our Kennewick office there. So I'm doing loans in Washington and now in Louisiana. So we're growing. We're going out and seeing people. We're taking realtors to lunch. We're doing all the things.
Right.
And that's, a process.
Yeah.
Right. As well as trying to maintain relationships in Washington.
Right.
So that's a growth mode. You are not only continuing to sell real estate in Washington and help people buy real estate in Washington, but you're working on your Louisiana real estate license as well.
Right.
So you're
in between washing sheets and sanitizing the RV for the Airbnb.
Which, again, is part of our growth mode, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Our RV was an expense. It was a cost center.
Right.
Well, now it's a profit center.
Right.
And that's because we have a fully covered RV parking space with utilities on the property.
Right.
So what Londa's doing now is she's Airbnb-ing the RV. And of course, people get to use the pool and the outside recreation areas here on the Austin, South Louisiana Resort, which you prefer over the Breaux Bridge compound.
Yeah, it sounds so creepy. Yeah, and we got the consulting gig.
Well, let's finish on the RV thing.
Woo, sorry.
So we had to replace the air conditioner in the RV, the living area air conditioner on the RV. It
lives on the roof.
And July's receipts alone on this August 1st, I can report July's receipts. We're not publicly traded, so it's not due today. But whatever the case, paid for not only any of the RV expenses dealing with the financing of the RV, it also paid for the air conditioner replacement in the RV. So it's gone from a cost center to a profit center. And if you live your life with profit centers,
right,
you're going to be okay.
Yes.
If you allow cost centers to rule your life, like consumer debt, like credit card debt, let me tell you something. People who have credit cards are hurting after this Fed fund rate raise of 0.75 of a point because their interest rates on their credit cards are going up. So I recommend if you can do something to get rid of your consumer debt, you should.
Right.
You for sure should.
Well, great. Good.
And the shiny
I'll do that. I have one credit card.
The sparkly shiny point in this whole conversation about what's going on with the national economy is when we're in a recession, interest rates historically go down. We've been seeing a downward trend for the last month.
Right.
And it continues to improve despite what the national media may be saying about interest rates. You know what I mean? We were the day before the Fed lowered the Fed fund rate at 6.25. And now we're back into the fives. Well, back into the fives. So, things are looking better on that front. Also, in a recession, historically, home values go up, not down.
Right.
The one recent derivation was in 2007, 2008. That recession was caused by overinflated home values. So what we saw when they talk about the bubble bursting, we saw housing values drop dramatically in a very short amount of time, but in almost as short an amount of time, about a year, we saw those values come racing back. And within 2 years, they were over where they were originally. So this is not doom and gloom. If you're a homeowner and have a ton of consumer debt that's eating you up, talk to your lender. You might be able to do a cash out refinance and pay off all of your consumer debt without much of an adjustment to your home mortgage itself.
Yeah, and you'll be coming out ahead.
For sure.
Right.
If you're killing yourself trying to pay $600 a month in consumer debt, and I have been there in my life, and that's hard to do. When the inflation rises quickly, you not only are killing yourself to pay off your consumer debt, but you're wondering if your gas card's going to work on the 28th of the month.
Right.
If you're in that situation, talk to your local lender, your financial partner, if you have one, and see if they can help you use your home equity to be able to take care of consumer debt.
Right.
I don't normally recommend using equity to pay debt, but if it saves you money over the life of the loan, then it may make sense.
Right.
So talk to your financial advisor or your lender to see if your home's equity can help you.
Yeah. Yep.
Does that make sense?
It totally does.
Yeah.
And
that's not a commercial for Envoy Mortgage, although my MLO number is 487-410. 487-410 is my national MLO number.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a really good lead in to a question that I got this week. We
the
got
question
this
of the week.
And that was, should I sell my house?
Well,
I have an answer.
Okay.
The answer for me, and this is as a realtor, and
this is exciting.
This often surprises people. The answer for me is only if you have to.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, why not use it as a profit center? Right? So the scenario was this. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Nowheresville. And because I don't want to give too many just personal financial details.
I know who asked this question.
And
now.
They've got $80,000 to $90,000 in equity in the house.
Yes.
And
a next to nothing mortgage payment.
A mortgage payment in the 500s.
Yes.
That was 500s, I said. It's like $534 a month or whatever.
And you've got to remember, in Louisiana, there's a homestead exemption. So they back out $75,000 worth of value from your assessed value and tax you only on what's above
$7,500.
$75,000.
I just did this. It's $7,500. At any rate, so on my stuff, but not necessarily in Louisiana. I'm just talking across the board. And I said, well, here, do you have to sell it? Well, I mean, I guess if I want to buy something else, well, no, you don't. You could do a cash out refi and use some of your equity to buy something else and keep that as a rental or an Airbnb or a whatever.
Right.
So just look at your options before you just pull the trigger on, I got to sell this and buy something else, because maybe you can put that money to work for you in a different way. The interest rate is next to nothing. And if you can use that money to work for you, why not do it?
Right.
That's what I would say. Another thing that we saw a news report on the national news, and they were talking to a woman who said, things are really tight. I had to downsize out of my 2-bedroom, 2-bath into a 1-bedroom, 1-bath.
Yes.
So that I could reduce my outgoing expense. And I said to you, that might have been a mistake.
That's exactly right.
Get a roommate if you can, and rent that 1-bedroom, 1-bath, or share a bath or whatever. If you're comfortable with sharing your space a little bit, you will always come out ahead, save more money if you rent that space, whether you Airbnb it, whether you just rent it and have a roommate or whatever the case.
Yes.
And so, so that's my answer is only if you have to.
Well, and Airbnb is something we are new to, and we're doing it here on our property.
But I'm being mentored by someone who has been doing it for a long time.
I gotcha. It's wildly popular. I can't believe how popular it is. Our little RV out in our backyard has been booked almost the entire month of July.
Yeah.
Almost the entire month. And the nights that it wasn't booked, it's because you blacked out those dates so that no one
We got so busy, I had to start blocking out dates so I could get a break.
Yeah.
Because I do the maintenance myself because I want to be sure that it's
everything
fully
except
sanitized.
the personal sanitation.
You are a champ, and you deal with the poo-poo cooties.
Yeah, that's terrible, by the way. Terrible. Nothing worse than that.
But we save money. I mean, we figured out a system where we don't have to take it someplace else. And
we've saved $16 per check-in.
Right.
Not
but when you
having
have
to go
10
to
check-ins
an RV
in a
park.
month.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's $160. I just did that math really quickly. Really, really quickly.
Super proud of you.
And let me tell you, $160 is a trip to Albertsons for groceries and liquor.
Yeah.
So
that's a week's worth of groceries.
That's exactly right. So again, what I'm trying to talk about is if you have the opportunity to have an income producing property, Airbnb so far seems way more profitable than a long-term renter.
And there's a lot of different sites. We just happened to use that one. There's VRBO, there's Outdoorsy. If you have an RV
Right.
and you're willing to let people take it off your property, and you can, it's a big amount.
We have friends that take their RVs out to RV resorts and let people on Outdoorsy rent them for the night or the weekend.
Right.
And they do very, very well, but it's less control. And even though you're charging more money, you've got to pay for the lot rent at the place. So you're not really coming out dramatically ahead unless you own a property that is resort-like the Austin South Louisiana Resort.
There you go.
Then I recommend doing it in your side yard for sure.
Right. I have another question of the week.
2 questions.
We're doubling up.
Okay.
Yeah. Double your pleasure, double your fun.
Here
Do you
we
remember
go. The
that?
Doublemint twins, of course.
I'm sorry, what? You have a radio show? That's the question. When does it start and how can people listen to it?
Okay, we've been very cryptic about the radio show, but today
We think.
the promos are supposed to start on the radio station, so we can now announce
We hope.
that our radio program, Austin's on the Air, will be each morning, Monday through Friday, from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. on News Talk 98.5 in Lafayette, Louisiana. News Talk 98.5, the talk of Acadiana. That's where we're going to be. It's a Delta Media Corporation station.
And the fun thing for me is that they have an app.
Mm-hmm.
So people, because we have the podcast, we have people everywhere,
Right.
that listen to us. And because of the app, people everywhere will be able to listen.
Right.
So that's really exciting and fun. And who knows what's going to happen with this. But
And the app, which is in the App Store, if you have a Galaxy phone, I don't know how that works, and the Apple Store, if you have an iPhone, it's there. It's called News Talk 98.5.
I think everyone knows how to find apps.
Well, I don't.
I love it.
So I had to learn how to do it, and I love it because Chuck Wood, the general manager of the company, was like, David, let me show you how to get the app, and he was so excited because he knows how to do it.
Right. Yeah. I only know because Ada shows me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there is an app store of some sort on your phone, so you can go into it today and go look for News Talk 98.5, and you'll see this one. And there's a picture of a building in downtown Lafayette as part of the logo, so it's really easy to see.
It's red.
So News Talk 98.5. And it's newstalk985.com to listen to online as well.
Yeah, but
the show starts
there
on
you go.
August 22nd.
Right.
So we have a wedding to go to in 10 days.
Yeah.
We're
Not just any wedding.
That's correct.
Our son James
That's exactly
is getting
right.
married to our beautiful Sierra.
That's right. And I love that kid. And she looks like I am her father. She looks like the Austin kids.
She kind of does.
She really
Yeah, it's
does.
bizarre.
If there was a third little Austin kid,
It would be
it'd
Sierra.
be Sierra. Anyway, I am not her father. But
Right.
she does look like my
But we
kid.
will be
so
in-
I
in
feel
Washington for that.
unusually close to her.
Yeah.
And that's great because she loves having me in her life as a father figure. So that's
Yeah.
fun for me.
So we go to Washington for a trip. We're going to New Orleans for a weekend, and then we start the show August 22nd.
That's exactly right. So mark your calendars. August 22nd, the Austins are on the air. This has been another edition of The Session with Londa and David. And by the way, when we start our radio show, we will continue The Session with Londa and David, brought to you this week by Home Coffee. Home Coffee also brought to you by the makers of Home Water. Enjoy your home coffee. It's on the house. You've already paid for it while I enjoy my home water. Again, I'm David Austin, and I love sitting with you each and every week, Londa.
That's awesome.
And doing this program for our myriad listeners. And once we're on terrestrial radio, you'll see how many more listeners there are.
Oh, my goodness.
Than podcast listeners. And we own the show, so we can talk about the podcast on our radio show if we want.
Talk about whatever we want, but I can't curse.
And they're very excited about having us on Delta Media Corporation stations.
We're excited to make them some
too.
money.
All right, we will talk to you next week.